The moment my brother ripped my wig off in front of 150 wedding guests, I thought my entire life had collapsed in one cruel second. I was standing there in my wedding dress, fighting back tears, while my mother laughed and said, "The groom deserves a real woman, not someone pretending." They thought they had destroyed my confidence forever. They thought everyone would see me as broken. But what they didn't know was that my husband had already made a promise to me before that day, a promise that would expose exactly who my family really was. And when he finally spoke, the entire room went silent. My name is Emily Carter, and I am 29 years old. I live in Denver, Colorado, where I built a quiet life filled with people who see me for who I truly am, not for what I've been through. But standing in that wedding dress, holding my bouquet with trembling hands, I never imagined that the happiest day of my life would become the day my family tried to destroy me. For years, I had dreamed about my wedding day, not because of the flowers, the venue, or the perfect photographs. I dreamed about finally feeling normal again. You see, 2 years before that day, I was diagnosed with cancer. The hardest part was not only the treatments, the exhaustion, or the fear of what would happen next. It was watching my reflection change little by little. My hair began falling out, and eventually, I had to accept something I never thought I would experience. I lost a part of my appearance that had always made me feel like myself. That was when I started wearing a wig. To some people, it was just hair. But to me, it was much more than that. It was confidence. It was the small piece of normal life I could hold on to during the hardest battle I had ever faced. The only person who never made me feel different was my fiancé, Daniel. From the moment he learned about my diagnosis, he never looked at me with sadness or pity. He looked at me like I was still the same woman he fell in love with. He always told me, "Emily, your hair is beautiful, but it's not what makes you beautiful." I believed him. And that was why, despite everything my family had put me through, I invited them to my wedding. Deep down, a part of me still hoped that maybe this day would change everything. Maybe my mother would finally see me as her daughter. Maybe my brother would finally stop treating my pain like a joke. I was wrong, because before that day ended, they would show me exactly who they had always been. Looking back now, I realize my wedding day did not create the problem. It only revealed what had been hidden for years. My brother, Jason, had always enjoyed making me feel small. When we were younger, people called it sibling teasing, but there was something different about the way he did it. He never joked with me. He joked at my expense. If I achieved something, he found a way to make it seem insignificant. If I was proud of something, he found a reason to embarrass me. And whenever I told my mother that his words hurt me, she would simply smile and say, "Emily, he's your brother. Learn to take a joke." But somehow, I was always the one expected to understand. When I got sick, I thought things would finally change. I thought seeing their daughter fight for her life would remind them how precious family was. Instead, it showed me a side of them I never wanted to believe existed. My mother worried more about what people would say than how I was feeling. She would ask if I was wearing makeup before family gatherings. She would tell me not to look too sick in pictures. My brother would make comments about my wig and laugh, saying I looked like I was pretending to be someone else. Every comment stayed with me, but I kept hoping they would change because they were my family. I wanted to believe that deep down, they loved me. I wanted to believe my wedding would be the moment they finally put their differences aside and celebrated me. I had no idea they had already decided to turn my most important day into their cruelest joke. The morning of my wedding day started like a dream. I remember standing in front of the mirror while my hands shook slightly, not because I was nervous about marrying Daniel, but because I could not believe I had finally made it to that moment. After everything I had survived, after every hospital visit, every difficult treatment, and every night I wondered if my life would ever feel normal again, I was finally getting the beginning I had always hoped for. My wig was perfectly styled. My wedding dress fit beautifully. For the first time in a long time, when I looked at myself, I did not see cancer. I saw Emily, the woman who survived, the woman who was loved. When Daniel saw me walking down the aisle, his eyes filled with tears. He smiled at me in a way that reminded me why I had chosen him. He did not see my scars or the struggles I had carried. He saw the woman standing in front of him. For a few hours, everything felt perfect. My friends were laughing. The music was playing. Guests were celebrating. I almost convinced myself that maybe my family had changed too. Then Jason walked toward me. At first, I thought he wanted to congratulate me. He had that familiar smile on his face, the one I had learned to fear over the years. He looked at my hair and said loudly, "So, everyone is just going to pretend that's real?" A few people nearby stopped talking. I felt my stomach tighten. I quietly told him, "Jason, please don't do this today." But he laughed. He said I was being too sensitive, just like always. Then he reached toward my head before I even understood what was happening. In one quick movement, he grabbed my wig and pulled it away. The room went silent. I froze. For a moment, I could not hear the music, the conversations, or even my own thoughts. I just stood there, holding my breath, feeling every pair of eyes on me. My hands immediately went to my head as I tried to cover myself. And then I heard the sound that hurt even more than what Jason had done. My mother was laughing. She looked at Daniel and said, "The groom deserves a real woman, not someone pretending." Everyone stared at her. They expected Daniel to walk away. But they had no idea what he was about to do. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The entire room felt frozen, like everyone was waiting to see what Daniel would do next. I could feel the tears building in my eyes. I had spent years learning how to hide my pain, how to smile through uncomfortable moments, how to pretend hurtful words did not affect me. But standing there in my wedding dress, exposed in front of everyone I loved, I felt like that scared woman from my hospital room again. Then Daniel walked toward me. Not away. Toward me. He took off his jacket and gently placed it around my shoulders. He did not look at my hair. He did not look embarrassed. He looked at me exactly the same way he had when we first met. With love. He held my hand and said quietly, "Emily, you are the strongest person I know. Nothing about you needs to be hidden." The room became even quieter. Then Daniel turned around and faced my family. "I need everyone here to understand something," he said. "Emily fought a battle most people could never imagine. She went through pain, fear, and uncertainty, and she still chose to stand here today with a smile." My mother looked uncomfortable. My brother suddenly stopped laughing. Daniel continued, "A wig does not define my wife. Cancer does not define my wife. But the way people treat someone who is hurting says everything about their character." I watched guests lower their eyes, realizing they had witnessed something deeply wrong. Daniel reached for my hand again and whispered, "You are beautiful. Not because of your hair. Not because of anyone's approval. Because of who you are." And in that moment, I understood something. My family had tried to make me feel ashamed, but the person I chose to spend my life with reminded me that I had nothing to be ashamed of. After my wedding day, I thought the hardest part would be recovering from what happened. I thought the painful memories would slowly fade. I thought I would eventually stop replaying that moment in my head. The sound of my brother laughing, my mother's cruel words, and the feeling of standing there while people watched me break. But something unexpected happened. People started talking. Not in the way my family wanted, though. For years, Jason had convinced everyone that his jokes were harmless. My mother always defended him, telling people that he was just being playful and that I was too emotional. But after the wedding, several relatives reached out to me privately. They told me they had noticed things for years. They remembered the comments, the insults, the way my brother always seemed happier when I was uncomfortable. One of my aunts admitted, "Emily, we should have said something sooner." And honestly, that hurt almost as much as what Jason did. Because sometimes the silence of people watching can be just as painful as the cruelty itself. A few weeks later, Jason tried to explain himself. He said he was only joking and that everyone was making it a bigger deal than it was. But I finally understood something. People who truly regret hurting you do not spend their time explaining why you should not be hurt. They apologize. My mother called me too. She said she was sorry, but every sentence somehow became about how embarrassed she felt that the wedding had turned into a family issue. That was when I realized the truth. They were not sorry for breaking my heart. They were sorry that everyone finally saw them clearly. And for the first time in my life, I stopped waiting for them to become the family I needed. For the first time in my life, I stopped asking myself why my family could not love me the way I deserved. Instead, I started asking a different question. Why had I spent so many years trying to prove that I was worthy of love? The truth was, I had been fighting that battle since childhood. I thought if I was kinder, quieter, more successful, or more understanding, maybe my mother would finally be proud of me. Maybe my brother would finally respect me. But that day at my wedding changed something inside me. I realized I did not need to keep chasing acceptance from people who had already decided not to see my value. Daniel helped me understand that healing was not about forgetting what happened. It was about refusing to let those moments control my future. Slowly, I began rebuilding my confidence. I stopped hiding my scars. I stopped feeling embarrassed about my journey. I even started sharing my story with others who were struggling with their own battles. Because I learned something important. Surviving something painful is not something to be ashamed of. It is proof that you are stronger than the thing that tried to break you. Jason eventually faced consequences for his actions. Family members who once ignored his behavior started seeing him differently. Some apologized for staying silent. Others simply disappeared. And honestly, I stopped needing either reaction. I had Daniel. I had friends who truly cared about me. I had a life built on love, not judgment. My family had spent years making me feel like I was not enough. But I finally understood that I was never the problem. I was the person who survived. And I was the person who chose to heal. A few months after my wedding, I finally had the conversation I had been avoiding for years. My mother called and asked if we could talk. For a moment, the old Emily, the girl who always hoped for her mother's approval, wanted to believe this was the apology I had been waiting for. But when we met, I realized something. She still wanted me to forgive her, but she did not fully understand what she had done. I looked at her and said, "Mom, the wig was never the thing that hurt me. It was knowing that the people who were supposed to protect me were the ones trying to humiliate me." She became quiet. I continued. I survived cancer. I survived losing my hair. But I almost lost myself trying to earn love from people who never valued me. That day, I chose peace. I did not forgive because they deserved it. I forgave because I deserved to move forward. My brother took something from me for a moment, but he could never take away who I had become. Because real family does not make you feel ashamed of surviving. Real love does not tear you down. It reminds you that you were always enough.